They said the night would smell of incense and sugar. By dawn, it smelled of iron and judgment. This is not only the story of a crime, it's the story of a toast that turned into a prayer and of a feast that buried the men who paid for it. If you walk the old roads around São Bento do Norte in Maranhão, there's a hill that people still avoid after dark. Nothing grows quite right on top of it. The soil is heavy. The wind blows strangely cold. Once, that hill carried one of the richest houses in the province, the Casa-Grande of the Amaral family. To the empire, the Amarais were respectable, white, Catholic, owners of land, sugar, and flesh. They financed campaigns, sat at political tables, had their names whispered in the salons of São Luís. To the people forced to bend under their orders, they were something else entirely. The master was Coronel Álvaro de Amaral, a white man with skin burned red by the sun, mustache carefully trimmed, eyes the color of cold water. He spoke softly, but his softness had the weight of an order already given. His wife, Sinha Beatriz, was pale as candle wax, her hair always pinned, her dresses smelling of imported perfume and sweat. She pretended not to notice. She had buried 2 sons before they took their first steps. Some said God was punishing her. Others said he was sparing the children. Yet in 1873, hope returned to that house in the most twisted way possible. A child was born. A boy, skin a deep brown, hair tight in small curls, eyes already alert to a world that did not deserve them. His mother was not Beatriz. She was Rosa, a young black woman, enslaved in that house, brought from another estate after her own mother died under the lash. The boy's father, everyone knew, was Álvaro. His wife knew. The priest suspected. The overseer joked about it in the yard. But Álvaro, like any good man of his time, found a way to make this crime look like charity. The child must be baptized, he said. Born in sin, yes, but baptized into order, into obedience. He did not say into chains, but that was understood. So they planned a feast. They called it a baptism. In truth, it was a celebration of the same system that had made that child possible. A white man's power and a black woman's silence. The date was set, August of 1873. The best families of the region would attend. Priests, landowners, merchants, 40 men and their wives, all dressed in gold and lace, coming to bless a baby they would never call son. The entire house moved like a machine. White upstairs, black downstairs, orders falling like crumbs from the table, obedience sweeping them up, and in the kitchen, where the real heart of any feast lives, a different kind of plan began to breathe. The kitchen of the Amaral house was a kingdom of smoke and fire, walls blackened by years of wood and grease, copper pots hanging like dull suns, knives worn thin by the repetition of violence turned domestic. It was ruled by a woman named Joanna. Joanna was black, her skin a deep, shining brown, hair wrapped in a white cloth, hands marked by burns and scars. Nobody knew if she had been born in Africa or Brazil. She never said, but when she prayed, her words sometimes curved in ways that did not belong to Portuguese. Above all, Joanna remembered. She remembered the first time Álvaro took a girl to the sugarcane. She remembered the sound of bones breaking in the senzala. She remembered the child Rosa lost a year before, when the Sinha demanded the baby be weaned too early, so the mother could return to work. She remembered names that never appeared in any baptism book. Rosa, the young mother, moved like a quiet shadow around Joanna. Her skin was a warm brown, eyes almost black, always fixed on her baby when she could steal a glance. They named him Tomás in secret, not the name that would be given at the font, the name whispered in the dark. At night, when she rocked him, Rosa sang, Tomás meu filho. If the world won't carry your name, the earth will. One evening, a week before the feast, Rosa came into the kitchen with red eyes and a piece of lace in her hands. They're going to dress him like them, she whispered, showing Joanna the tiny white garment, white like a little lord. Joanna took the lace between her fingers. The cloth was fine, delicate, softer than anything that had ever touched her own children, those who had lived, and those who had not. "How many will be here?" she asked. "Corano says 40, senors. Maybe more. From São Luís Caxias, Alcântara, says this house will never be forgotten." Joanna's jaw tightened. "Maybe he's right," she said. Rosa frowned. "What are you thinking, Mainha?" Joanna did not answer. Instead, she turned to Bento, the black man who tended the wine cellar. Bento had skin the color of polished mahogany, hair cut close to the scalp, a thin scar across his cheek, a reminder of a time he spoke when he shouldn't. He had learned since then to let his silence speak through his eyes. "You heard?" Joanna asked. "I heard," he said. 40 men, maybe more, all with big thirsts. Bento knew those thirsts well. He was the one who brought up the bottles of red from Portugal, the casks of rum from the coast, the cachaca made from the same cane that broke black backs. He watched those men drink, to celebrate profits, to forget screams, to toast to order and progress long before that phrase was printed on any flag. That night, after the others had gone to sleep, Joanna lit a small candle in a corner of the kitchen where the shadows soaked up secrets. She took from under a loose stone a small cloth bundle. Inside were dried leaves and dark berries, carefully wrapped, kept for a day she hoped would never come, and always knew would. The leaves came from a plant that grew behind the old cemetery wall. Its name whispered only among women, passed from mouth to ear in low tones. Too much, and it killed like a blade. A little less, and it killed like a prayer, slow, calm, as if the soul had decided to leave before the body knew. Rosa watched, heart hammering. "What are you doing, Joanna?" The older woman's voice was steady. "I'm counting." "Counting what?" "How many mouths the land is owed." Rosa shook her head, terrified. If they find out, Joanna cut in, "We die. If they don't, we die slowly. You think Tomas will grow with them smiling over his cradle? You think they will let him be anything but more hands for Cain?" Rosa held her baby tighter. "They will kill us," she whispered. Joanna looked at the boy. His tiny fingers grabbed the air as if reaching for something unseen. "They already do," she said softly. "Only now, maybe, they drink with us." The day of the baptism rose in gold. Sunlight spilled over the fields like syrup, turning sugarcane tips into little spears of light. The house gleamed, whitewashed walls, balconies adorned with cloth, church bells ringing in the distance. Inside, servants ran like ants under a boot. Black men polished silver, until it hurt to look at. Black women set tables, their hands moving fast, their faces still. The main hall was a theater of power. Long wooden tables set in a U-shape, white linen tablecloths falling to the floor, candlesticks of brass catching the light. On the walls, portraits of dead Amorais, watched with bored, painted eyes, white faces framed in curls and uniform collars. At the head of the table sat 2 empty chairs. For Alvaro and Beatriz, between them, on a small separate table, a silver bowl waited, a basin for holy water, and for a future carefully caged. Near the kitchen door, a sideboard sagged under the weight of bottles. Ruby red wine, golden liquor, crystal decanters. Bento moved among them like a shadow, filling each bottle, measuring with a calm that hid the storm inside him. Joanna watched from the doorway. The plan, if it could even be called a plan, was simple and impossible at once. Not all the wine, not the water they would notice, not the food, too many hands, too many tasters. The wine served in the toasts. The special bottles for the master table, the ones poured only after the priest had left the font, after he had declared the child purified. Irony, Joanna thought, had a cruel sense of timing. In the small chapel next to the house, the guests arrived. Carriages rolled up the hill, horses snorting, wheels crushing the dirt path, men in dark suits, white shirts stiff with starch, gold watches glinting at their waists, women in silk and taffeta, hair twisted in elaborate styles, fans fluttering to chase away heat. and any smell that reminded them they were still in the tropics. They greeted each other with loud voices that echoed through the chapel naves. Coronel, long time. Major, I hear your harvest was the best in the province. Laughter, handshakes, whispered business. They spoke of prices of sugar, of rumors of abolitionists in Rio, of politics in the court. Slavery, to them, was not questioned. It was air. At the back of the chapel, the enslaved stood in a shadowed cluster, Rosa with Tomas in her arms, Joanna and Bento by her side, others behind them. Rosa had been forced into a clean dress, blue cotton that scratched her skin. Tomas wore the lace garment, a tiny white cloud against his mother's brown chest. Father Antonio, the priest from the town, was a thin white man with sharp cheekbones, hair already receding, eyes tired. He had heard confessions in that district for 10 years. He knew more secrets than any judge. And yet, every month, he blessed more chains. When the ceremony began, he went through the motions with the precision of a man who had done this 100 times. Do you, Beatriz de Amaral, and you, Alvaro de Amaral, as godparents, promise to guide this child in the ways of the Lord. Beatriz, dressed in gold silk, placed a hand on the silver basin. We do, she said. Alvaro's voice followed. We do. Nobody asked Rosa. Her name did not appear in the register. In the priest's book, she was Mea Scrava, unknown father, a lie bound in ink. When the holy water touched Tomas's forehead, he whimpered once, then calmed. Tomas Alvaro de Amaral, the priest declared, giving the child the master's name, while denying him the master's blood. In that moment, 40 white men smiled. They believed they had tightened the knot of their world. They did not see Joanna's eyes, watching from the back. They did not hear Rosa's whisper in her native tongue, a language older than that house, older than that baptism, older than the empire itself. If the chapel was the empire's mask, the dining hall was its true face. As the sun began to fall, the guests moved from prayer to appetite. They walked down the corridor like a parade of privilege, teeth gleaming, rings catching the last light of the day. The tables were loaded, roasted pork, stews of beef, bowls of farofa and beans, cakes heavy with molasses. Everything tasted of sugar, even the things that shouldn't. Joanna moved through the hall with her helpers, black women with hair wrapped tight, carrying platters, serving with practiced invisibility. Rosa was kept to the side, holding Tomas like a prop. Guests came by, poked his cheek, cooed about his strong little arms. He'll make a fine overseer one day, someone joked. Laughter followed. No one missed the way Rosa's fingers dug into the cloth of his gown. At the head table, Alvaro raised his glass. The wine glowed like garnet under the candlelight. Friends, he began, today we celebrate life. Life that God grants even in these hard times. This child, he gestured toward Tomas, is a sign that our houses will endure, that our name, our faith, our order will not be shaken by the winds of the court or the poisons of false freedom. He paused, letting the words sink in. Around him, men nodded. They spoke of abolition as nonsense whispered in Rio. Out here, in their world of cane and chains, they believed themselves untouchable. What we built, Alvaro continued, is rooted in this land, and tonight we drink to that root. He lifted his glass higher, to the children we baptize into order, to the land that feeds us, to the God who blesses our work. Glasses rose around the room. Crystal chimed. Red wine caught golden reflections. Only a few realized that their goblets had been filled, from different bottles, than the ones served to the wives. Only a few noticed Bento's hands, move with unusual precision. To life, they shouted. To life, echoed the hall. They drank. The first swallow burned pleasantly down their throats. The second tasted richer than usual, a slightly bitter depth under the sweetness. Some men smacked their lips appreciatively. Good wine, Amaral, said one. From Porto? Alvaro smiled, proud. from the old country itself. In the kitchen, Joanna leaned against the wall for a moment. Her legs trembled. Her mouth felt dry. She had not touched the wine. But guilt has a taste too. Rosa came to her, eyes wide. "Is it done?" Joanna did not answer. In the hall, laughter grew louder. As the night deepened, stories of harvests, of mistresses, of business deals. Men slapped each other on the back, their faces flushed. The first sign was small. A man at the far end of the table, Major Faria, a white man with a big belly and bigger voice. Paused mid-sentence. His hand rose to his chest. "Hot in here," he muttered. His neighbor laughed. "Too much wine, Major." But then Major Faria's face lost its color. He blinked slowly, as if the room was moving away from him. His fork slipped from his fingers. It clattered against the plate. For a moment, the noise was swallowed by the chatter. Then his chair tipped backward, and he hit the floor with a dull, final thud. The hall went silent. All eyes turned. "Faria," someone called. No answer. Two men rushed to him, trying to lift him, to shake him back to life. His mouth hung open, eyes fixed on the ceiling beams. "He's not breathing," whispered one. "Fetch the priest," shouted another. Father Antonio hurried from his place. Face pale, he knelt by the man, placed fingers at his neck, murmured prayers. Rosa, from her corner, held Tomas tight. His little hand curled around a lock of her hair, as if to anchor himself. "Maybe a stroke," someone suggested. "The heat." But then another cough tore the air. At the opposite table, a younger man, Joaquim Lobo, skin freckled, mustache barely grown, doubled over, clutching his stomach. "Water," he gasped. "Water." He vomited dark red onto the floor. His body convulsed once, twice, then went still. Panic moved through the room like fire. Chairs scraped. Women screamed. Servants froze in place. More men began to sway. One gripped the table, so hard his knuckles turned white, fighting the dizziness. Another collapsed face first into his plate, wine spilling around his head like a halo of blood. In the chaos, no one saw Bento slip away from the doorway. No one saw Joanna's hand tremble so violently she dropped the serving spoon. Within minutes, the hall had become something else entirely, where moments before there had been jokes and toasts, there were bodies on the ground, legs tangled in chair legs, hands still clutching cloth napkins. The women pressed themselves against the walls, some fainting, others wailing. Beatrice stood at the head of the table, frozen, her golden dress catching the light, like armor that could not protect her. Alvaro stared, breath coming shallow. He looked from one fallen friend to another, as if refusing to do the math. Outside, the night was very still. Crickets sang. The moon rose over the cane. Inside, 40 men tasted the same judgment. Their throats tightened. Their hearts stumbled. Their tongues turned heavy in their mouths. Some tried to stand, to call for doctors, for soldiers, for anything. Their words came out slurred, air without sound. They had spent years silencing others. Tonight, silence came for them. Father Antonio stood in the middle of it all, surrounded by gasps and death. He looked at the wine jugs, at the purple stains on the tablecloth, at the faces turning gray. For a second, his gaze met Joanna's across the room. She did not look away. In that brief line of sight, no words passed, but something like understanding did. He knew, she knew he knew, and he also knew that those bodies on the ground had bought their comfort with blood and confession. He raised his hand. "Everyone out," he said to the servants. His voice shook, but the order was clear. Now, they carried the dead men to the chapel, one by one, on sheets and tablecloths. Those still breathing were laid on benches, watched by wives who had no words left, only raw sound of fear. Outside the hall, the enslaved gathered in the yard, kept there by the overseer's pistol, and the fear that had ruled them for years. They listened to the cries inside. They smelled the mix of wine and vomit, of sweat and holy water. Rosa stood near the kitchen door, Tomas still in her arms, his tiny face pressed against her neck, eyes closed, dreaming, perhaps, of a world where his name meant something else. Joanna sat on a low stool, hands in her lap. The candlelight from inside the house reached her in uneven waves. Bento leaned against a post, staring at the ground. After a while, the cries changed. There were fewer screams, more sobbing, the kind of sobbing that comes when there are more bodies and questions. The overseer, a white man named Correa, stormed into the yard. His skin was flushed, eyes wild. "What did you do?" he shouted. "Nobody leaves. Nobody moves. If this is poison, one of you," he didn't finish. His hand flew to his chest, face twisting in pain. He staggered, fell to his knees, then onto his side. For a moment, no one moved. Then someone laughed. It was a sharp, shock sound, cut off immediately. But it was there. The poison had reached farther than they thought. Correa writhed for a few seconds, then lay still. Joanna watched him. She hadn't meant for him. He had drunk from a servant's mug, tasting the master's wine without permission. So be it, she thought. Men came and dragged his body inside. Once, they would have done it with care. Tonight, hands were rough. Death had turned him from supervisor to wait. Hours passed. Father Antonio moved between the bodies like a ghost, giving last rites as fast as his dry lips could form the words, "Ego te absolvo." He repeated it so many times that the phrase lost all meaning and became a sound like the croaking of frogs in the marsh. He knew absolution, in this case, was a lie, but lies had been his work for a long time. When the worst of the storm passed, Beatrice came to him. Her hair had fallen loose, face streaked with tears and powder. "What happened?" she demanded. "What curse is this?" The priest looked at the empty glasses, at the stained lips of the dead. He thought of the sermons he had given, about justice left to God, about rewards in heaven. "Mistress," he said slowly, "your house has been drinking blood for many years. Tonight, perhaps, the cup was simply too full." She stared at him, horrified. "You dare." He cut her off with a raised hand. "Do you really want me to say poison aloud? Do you want the province, the court, to hear that word? To send investigators? Doctors? New men with new laws?" Beatrice's face tightened. "No," she whispered. "No, they will say we lost control, that we cannot run our own lands." Father Antonio nodded. "Then listen. You will say it was bad meat, a fever, God's test. Whatever story your class prefers, the dead will be buried with their secrets. And you will go on." He didn't say for now, but the words hung there anyway. "What about them?" Beatrice nodded toward the yard, toward the dark cluster of black bodies under the night. "What if they talk?" The priest's eyes followed her gaze. Outside, Joanna, Rosa, Bento, and more than 100 others waited. "They already talk," he replied. "They always did. You just never listened." Near dawn, the sky turning gray-blue, Father Antonio stepped out into the yard. The enslaved straightened. Instinctively, a priest might not own their bodies, but his words had sent many of them back into chains, with resignation instead of revolt. Tonight, however, something in his posture was different. His shoulders sagged. His hands, stained with oil and tears, hung open at his sides. He looked at Joanna. "You did this," he said quietly. Murmurs rippled through the group. Faces turned to her. Joanna held his gaze. "I did what they made me bury," she answered. Her voice was not loud, but it carried. "For every child they took from us, for every back they tore, for every night we bit the sheet, just to keep from screaming loud enough to wake their God." The priest closed his eyes for a moment. "You killed 40 men," he said. "They killed more than 40, she replied. "They just used different tools." Bento stepped forward. "If you're going to turn us in, Father, do it now. Say the words. Let them hang us while the graves are still open. It will save them time." Silence stretched. The priest looked back at the house. He saw the future that awaited if he spoke. Soldiers, trials, a spectacle to reassure the empire that the order of things was being restored. He also saw that the bodies inside were not innocent. He had heard their confessions, rapes disguised as weakness, beatings smoothed over with coins at the altar, cruelties that did not even come with remorse. His faith had long lived in the space between what was preached and what was practiced. Tonight, that space felt like a cliff. "Do you repent?" he asked Joanna at last. She frowned. Repent of what? Of not dying slowly? Of measuring their lives the way they meet around his gnosis? "This is not how justice should be done," he said weakly. She tilted her head. "And how should it be done, Father? On paper? In courts we can't enter? In heaven, when our children need to hear?" A rooster crowed in the distance. The first birds began to call. The priest sighed. An old man sighed. "God will judge you," he said. She almost smiled. "Maybe," she answered. "But last night, for a few hours, we judged them." He turned away, eyes shining. "In my report," he whispered, "there will be no poison, no names, only a house struck by sudden illness during a feast. Do you understand what that means?" Bento nodded slowly. "It means they will lie again." "It means," the priest replied, "that you will not hang today, that your children will not be whipped because of what happened in there." He looked at Rosa and the baby in her arms. "That child," he said, "will grow up with a story that people tell in secret, a story about the night the masters died and the chains did not." He raised his hand in a gesture of blessing, not sure if he still believed in the power behind it. "Go back to your quarters," he told them. "Sleep if you can. Work will not stop. Nothing will change. And yet, nothing will ever be the same." The funerals lasted 3 days. Carriages came and went, bringing black-clad widows and priests from other parishes. The cemetery on the hill filled with new crosses, names carved deep into stone. Faria, Lobo Pereira, Correa, Amaral. The official story spread quickly. Spoiled food, bad air, a tragic visitation of disease. Doctors, friends of the families, signed papers that confirmed it. No one wanted to admit that 40 men could be brought down by something as simple as what they put in their own cups. In the quarters, the story spread differently. The children whispered of Acea Envenenada, the cursed supper. The elders nodded knowingly, eyes shining with a dangerous sort of hope. They drank what we always drank. One old man said, "Only faster." Work did not stop. The cane still ripened. The mill still turned. But something had shifted when overseers shouted. Their voices no longer landed with the same weight. When orders came from new masters, their authority felt thinner, more fragile. They knew, even if they'd never admit it, that a feast could turn into a funeral. In one night, Beatrice inherited the estate, but her health never recovered. She moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding the dining hall, refusing to drink red wine ever again. Tomas grew. He did not stay long in the house of his father. Too much fear attached to his brown skin, too much resemblance in his eyes. He was sent to another property as a boy, mixed in with other enslaved children, his baptismal gown long forgotten, his Amaral name reduced to a rumor. But the story traveled ahead of him. Wherever he went, people said, that boy was the baby of the feast, the one they baptized while death waited in the bottles. Joanna lived long enough to see slavery end on paper. When news of the Lei Aurea arrived in Maranhão, she was already bent, hair white, hands slow. "Freedom," the young one shouted. She smiled bitter and proud. Freedom is a strange thing to write in a law, after so much was written in backs. She murmured. Rosa died younger, taken by a fever that no plan could cure. But before she went, she told Tomas the story again and again, how men raise their cups to toast your submission and instead swallow their own ending. The empire liked to say that justice belonged to courts, to uniforms, to parchment stamped with wax. But in Maranhão, In 1873, justice came in another form. It came in the hands of a black woman who had buried too many children. It came in the quiet courage of a man who poured wine, knowing each drop carried a decision. It came in the silence of a priest who finally chose not to protect the powerful with his pen. Was it justice as we imagine it? Neat, clean, delivered by neutral hands? No, it was justice shaped by desperation and memory, carried out in a world where all other doors have been nailed shut. 40 men died in a single night, their tongues heavy, their throats burning with the same red they had used to celebrate themselves. They were buried with crosses and prayers, and lies engraved in stone. But the story did not go down with them. It stayed in the kitchens, in the corridors, in the unmarked graves where the other dead slept. It stayed in the way people looked at wine afterward, in the uneasy laughter when glasses were raised. It stayed in the land, because there are nights when the earth itself refuses to forget. They thought they were baptizing a child into chains. Instead, they baptized themselves into the grave, and the wine that was meant to bless them became the cup where history finally wrote enough. If you've come this far, you already know this wasn't just a feast. It was a warning written in wine. Every toast, every silence, every prayer at that table carried a truth the empire tried to bury, that no power built on pain lasts forever. If stories like this move you, the ones history tried to erase, then don't let them die again. Subscribe to Broken Chains History, and keep the fire of memory burning where silence once ruled. Because one day, the ground always drinks back what was spilled